Week 7, Proverbs 7. So Solomon opens this chapter with something I think a lot of people skip past. He says, keep wisdom close, not close by, but close. Like have it before you need it, because pressure does not arrive with a warning. Then he looks out a window and describes a young man. He calls him simple. And when I actually looked that word up in context, simple in biblical terms simply did not mean stupid. It meant inexperienced, unaware of how exposed you actually are. That reframing changes everything because the young man in this story is not an idiot. He is just moving without awareness, and he is what caught my attention. The problem does not start when she speaks, it starts when he chose that corner, that street, that direction. He was already in motion toward it before anything happened. Temptation did not show up at the conversation. It showed up at the route he chose before the conversation even started, right? So Proverbs 7:21, it does say, she seduced him with pretty speech and enticed him with flattery. This is not force. This is not obvious. This is strategic. Patient persuasion. She is saying things he wants to hear before he even realizes he wants to hear them. And the more I thought about it, I stopped reading her as just a person. I think she represents a pattern. She represents a situation, an opportunity, a relationship, the shortcut that knows exactly how to appeal to what you want while quietly pulling you somewhere you never consciously agreed to go to. Now, the chapter compares him to an ox, this young man, going to the slaughter. And really think about that. So when you think about an ox going to get slaughtered, the ox is not panicking necessarily. It's not fighting. It is just moving along, right? Completely unaware of where it is about to go. That is the part that stayed with me, right? Just thinking about that. Some people think they are still in control because they are still making choices, but the options they are choosing have already been almost like chosen for them, right? It's been narrowed by the path they were walking before the choice ever appeared. This is why I think temptation and honestly, most of the consequential decisions we make do not start at the decision point. They start at the pattern. The small yes that made the next yes just a little bit easier. The corner you kept walking past. The situation you kept leaving the door open for. And this cuts both ways, right? Because a lot of times people take these things and they apply it to bad situations, but the same progression that leads people into bad outcomes is the same progression that builds towards good ones too. Nobody wakes up and just becomes a disciplined individual, right? They walk the pattern that made discipline easier, one decision at a time. So the question I'm actually asking myself, and the one I think is worth actually asking, is not what decisions am I making, it is what corners am I walking toward before I even realize I am close. Because a lot of situations are easier to avoid early than escape later. And a lot of opportunities are easier to position today than to chase tomorrow, right? So let me bring this out of biblical times for a second and put it somewhere you can actually feel and understand it. That corner Solomon is describing, that street the young man was already walking down before anything happened, I want you to think about where your vision of that corner looks like right now. Because for a lot of people in this space, it is not a person, it is a pattern. It is the job you have been tolerating for years while telling yourself you are just waiting for the right time to make a move. And every month you stay, the move gets harder to imagine. Not because you are less capable, but because the path you keep walking is making the corner feel normal. It is the financial habits you keep rationalizing and justifying, right? It's that one simple subscription that you didn't cancel. It's the purchase that felt small in the moment. The savings account, you said you would start. You said you was going to start investing, right? You haven't started it. You said you was going to do it with the next check. That hasn't happened. And you are not making one big reckless financial decision. You're just making these small steps, calm, unbothered, in a direction you have not fully examined. So it's that side project, the business idea, the career pivot you keep saying is next. And the longer you keep at next, the more you are choosing a direction by default. Remember, not choosing is still a choice. I was always told that, right? So here's what gets me about this chapter. The young man is not described as evil. He is not described as malicious. He is simply described as being unaware. He does not even know he is exposed. He does not realize the options in front of him have already been shaped by the route he chose before he got there. That is the honest conversation. I think most people that are in a season of rebuilding, like how I am, we actually need to have. Not necessarily more motivation, not another course, not another framework, just someone willing to sit with them and say, let us actually look at the pattern. Let's look at what you've been doing. Let us look at what corner you keep walking toward before you realize you are close. Because awareness is not the same as judgment. Noticing the pattern is not indictment of who you are. It is actually the first move toward changing where you end up. So, here's what I want to get. This is where I want to get practical, and I mean like actually practical, not conceptual. Let's apply this. So, as you guys know, I use AI in my workflow regularly. Not because it has all the answers. That's not the purpose, and that's not what I'm looking for anyway. But because it asks the right questions, it asks, am I too close to the situation to ask myself? And that is exactly what Proverbs 7 is pointing at. The young man needed someone to ask him simply, where are you going? Before he even got there. So I want to give you a prompt, an actual prompt you can open and use right now inside of Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, whatever it is that you use, okay? And here's what you're going to type. I want to do an honest pattern audit. Ask me 5 questions about my current habits, career direction, financial decisions, and how I am spending my time. After I answer, reflect back to me what patterns you notice and where I might already be moving toward a decision before I have consciously made it. That's the prompt. That's all you're going to do. You're going to open it up, type that in. And what happens when you run it is interesting because AI does not have an emotional stake in your comfort, my comfort. It is not going to soften the observation to protect your feelings, especially if you've been using it for a while. It is going to reflect back what you actually said. And sometimes what you actually say when you sit down and answer honestly tells you more than you wanted to admit out loud, perhaps. Now, I ran the same thing, same thing this week. And what came back was not earth shattering, but it was clear. It showed me a place where I had been calling something a decision when it was really just momentum I had not yet examined yet. I was walking toward a corner I hadn't named yet. That is the value of the tool. That is the value of using AI in instances like this. Not that it is smarter than you, it's just that it's outside of you and it doesn't have an emotional stake in what it says back to you, right? It just reflects. Now, here's what I want you to actually do with this. Step 1, run the prompt. Be honest when it asks the questions. Do not perform. Do not give the answer you think sounds good. Give the real answer. I find that that's usually the first one that comes to your mind. Go with your gut. Step 2, read what it reflects back to you without defending yourself immediately. Just read it and just take it in. Step 3, identify one corner, just one area where you can See now that you were already in motion towards something before you consciously chose it. Name it, write it down. Step 4, make one deliberate redirect. Not a complete overhaul, not a new year, new me. We're not talking about doing resolutions. We're just talking about picking one intentional adjustment to the direction in which you've been going. Okay? Just one. Because the chapter is not saying the young man was doomed. It is saying he just didn't see it coming. And once you see it, you now have options he did not have in that moment. That is the difference between wisdom and regret. Wisdom is what you have before the pressure shows up. Regret is what you carry after you realize you were already walking toward the corner long before the conversation started. Proverbs 7 is not just ancient or biblical advice, it is a pattern recognition. And right now, with the tools that's available to us, we have no excuse not to run it on ourselves regularly. The young man in this story lacked one thing: not intelligence, not good intentions. It didn't mention anything about his looks or lack thereof. He simply lacked awareness. Do not let this be the reason your story goes the way his did. So that's my take on Proverbs chapter 7. This is week 7. Let me know your thoughts, your take. Be sure to like, share with somebody, save it, come back to it. You already know, I'm out. Peace.